The world you see today did not suddenly become tense in 2026. The pressure between the United States and Iran is old. It is deep, and it has been growing for generations. To understand the problem, we must return to a different time. A time when Iran and America were not enemies. In the middle of the 20th century, Iran was ruled by a king known as the Shah. He was supported by the United States. America saw Iran as an important partner in the Middle East. Iran had oil. America needed energy and influence. The Shah allowed Western companies into Iran. Oil money flowed out. Modern cities were built. Weapons were bought from the West. But while the country looked modern from the outside, many people inside Iran felt ignored. They felt their culture was being erased. They felt their religion was pushed aside. They felt their future was being decided far away, in Washington and European capitals. This silent anger grew year by year. In 1979, it exploded. Millions of people filled the streets. The Shah fled the country. A religious revolution took control. Iran became an Islamic republic. This new Iran rejected the United States completely. American influence was seen as evil. The U.S. embassy in Tehran was seized. American diplomats were held hostage. From that moment, the relationship collapsed. America felt humiliated. Iran felt powerful for the first time. Sanctions were placed on Iran. Trade was cut. Money stopped flowing. Iran did not forget. America did not forgive. Instead of direct war, a new kind of conflict began. A long, slow struggle. Iran realized it could not defeat America face to face, so it chose another path. It began building influence through others. Groups across the Middle East started receiving Iranian support. Not openly. Quietly. In Lebanon, a powerful group formed. In Iraq, armed militias grew. In Syria, Iran backed the government. In Yemen, another movement rose. These groups did not wear Iranian uniforms, but they shared Iran's goals. This strategy allowed Iran to push back against American power without firing directly at U.S. soldiers. The United States responded in its own way. It increased military bases around the region. It strengthened alliances. It supported rival countries. This is where the Middle East began to split into sides. On America's side stood Israel. Israel sees Iran as an existential threat. Iran does not recognize Israel as a legitimate state. Saudi Arabia and Gulf nations leaned toward the U.S. They feared Iran's growing influence. They worried about Iran controlling the region. European countries mostly followed America's lead. They supported pressure on Iran, especially over weapons. On the other side, Iran was not alone. Russia moved closer to Tehran. Both countries opposed American dominance. Both felt targeted by Western pressure. China also strengthened ties with Iran. China needed energy. Iran needed buyers. Both wanted a world with less American control. This created two power blocks, not official alliances, but shared interests. Then came the issue that raised global fear: Iran's nuclear program. Iran said it needed nuclear technology for energy and science. America and its allies believed Iran wanted nuclear weapons. Talks began. Agreements were signed, then broken. Sanctions were lifted, then returned. Each cycle damaged trust even more. Sanctions crushed Iran's economy. Prices rose. Jobs disappeared. Ordinary people suffered. But instead of weakening Iran's leadership, pressure often made it more aggressive. The Middle East became unstable. Ships were attacked. Drones crossed borders. Bases were hit through proxy groups. Each incident stayed just below the level of full war. But the anger never disappeared. Years passed. Leadership changed. But the conflict remained. By the time the world reached the mid-2022s, the situation had become dangerous. America felt its global power was being challenged. Iran felt surrounded by enemies and sanctions. Neither side trusted the other. Neither side wanted to look weak. This is not a simple fight between two countries. It is history, pride, fear, and power mixed together. It is about control of the Middle East. It is about influence over energy. It is about who shapes the future. And this long history is the foundation of the crisis the world is watching today. Nothing in 2026 exists in isolation. Every move today carries the weight of decades. And when such heavy history meets modern weapons and global instability, even silence can be dangerous. As the years moved forward, the conflict did not calm down. It changed shape. After the early sanctions and political isolation, Iran learned how to survive under pressure. It rebuilt its economy around resistance. It focused on self-reliance, and it invested heavily in influence beyond its borders. One key moment came after the 2003 invasion of Iraq. The United States removed Saddam Hussein from power. This decision changed the balance of the entire region. Saddam had been a strong enemy of Iran. With him gone, a power vacuum appeared. Iran moved quickly. Political parties with close ties to Tehran gained influence in Iraq. Armed groups formed. Religious networks expanded. For the first time, Iran had deep reach into a neighboring Arab country. America was still present in Iraq with soldiers and bases, but Iran was shaping the ground from within. This created a strange situation. Both enemies were operating in the same country, watching each other, testing limits. At the same time, Iran strengthened its role in Lebanon. A powerful armed group there became a major force. It had weapons, fighters, and political power. It was backed by Iran. This group acted as a shield and a warning. Any attack on Iran could mean retaliation far away from Iranian land. Israel watched closely. Israel saw Iran's growing influence as a direct danger. Missiles pointed toward its cities. Threats spoken openly by Iranian leaders. Israel began targeting Iranian interests quietly. Airstrikes, cyber attacks, intelligence operations. Most were never officially claimed. This shadow war grew slowly. In Syria, the situation became even more complex. When war broke out there, Iran chose a clear side. It supported the existing government, sent advisors, sent resources. Russia later joined the same side. This alliance changed the war's direction. America supported different groups. So did regional allies. Syria became a battlefield for influence, not just for Syrians, but for global powers. Every move there affected the balance between Iran and the United States. Meanwhile, the nuclear issue returned again and again. Negotiations took years. A major agreement was finally reached. Iran agreed to limit its nuclear activities. In return, sanctions were reduced. For a short time, tension eased. Money flowed back into Iran. Oil exports increased. People hoped for relief, but trust was fragile. The agreement did not last. When America withdrew from the deal, pressure returned stronger than before. Sanctions hit banks, oil, shipping, and trade. Iran's currency lost value. Inflation rose sharply. Daily life became harder. Instead of stepping back, Iran stepped forward. It reduced cooperation, increased nuclear activity, sent stronger signals to its rivals. At sea, incidents increased. Ships were seized. Drones flew close to borders. Each action was a message. The United States responded with military presence. Warships in the Gulf, more troops at bases, more weapons for allies. But neither side crossed the final line, because a direct war would be costly. America knew a war would not be short. Iran knew it could not win openly. So both continued the indirect fight. By the early 2022s, a new global shift was happening. America was facing challenges elsewhere. China was rising. Russia was pushing back in Europe. Iran saw opportunity. It deepened ties with Moscow and Beijing. Long-term deals were signed. Energy agreements were made. These relationships gave Iran breathing space. Not safety, but options. On the other side, America strengthened ties with regional partners. Security agreements expanded. Intelligence sharing increased. Military exercises became frequent. The Middle East turned into a tense chessboard. Every move mattered. Every signal was analyzed. By the time the world reached the middle of this decade, the conflict had become layered. It was no longer just about nuclear weapons, or sanctions, or old grudges. It was about who controls trade routes, who influences governments, who sets the rules. And behind all of it stood ordinary people. People in Iran, struggling with prices and jobs. People in the region living under fear of conflict. People in America paying the cost of endless global tension. The crisis of 2026 did not begin suddenly. It is the result of years of decisions, reactions, and missed chances. A slow burn, one that continues to grow hotter, even when the world looks calm. By this stage, the conflict had entered a new phase. It was no longer loud all the time. It became calculated, careful, and more dangerous. Iran focused strongly on regional influence. Instead of fighting directly, it built networks. In Yemen, support flowed to groups fighting a Saudi-led coalition. This turned a local war into a regional one. Missiles and drones began reaching deep into Saudi territory. Every strike sent a message. Iran could reach its rivals without firing a single missile from its own soil. In the Gulf, tension stayed high. Oil tankers moved slowly through narrow waters. Navies watched each other closely. A small mistake could shut down global energy flows. The world depended on these waters. That made every incident bigger than it seemed. At the same time, technology changed the nature of conflict. Cyber attacks became common. Power systems failed. Factories shut down. Data vanished. No one officially took responsibility, but everyone understood the signals. War no longer needed soldiers on the ground. It could begin with a keyboard. Inside Iran, the pressure continued to shape society. Young people faced limited jobs. Prices kept rising. Hope came and went. Yet national pride stayed strong. Years of sanctions had created a mindset of resistance. Many believed survival itself was a victory. The government used this feeling. It framed pressure as proof of strength, as proof that Iran mattered. In the United States, priorities were shifting. After decades of wars in the Middle East, public support was weak. People were tired of endless conflicts, tired of high costs. But the region still mattered. Energy markets, allies, global credibility. Leaving was not simple. So America tried balance. Enough pressure to contain Iran, enough distance to avoid full war. This balance was hard to maintain. Every regional clash tested it. Israel played a unique role. It acted faster than others, more quietly, more precisely. Strikes targeted supply routes, facilities, key individuals. The goal was clear: stop Iran from becoming too strong, especially when it came to advanced weapons. These actions raised the risk of retaliation, but they were seen as necessary by Israel. Iran responded with patience, not always immediately, not always openly, sometimes through allies, sometimes through timing. This made the conflict unpredictable. Russia and China watched closely. For Russia, Iran was a useful partner. In Syria, in energy markets, in challenging U.S. influence. For China, Iran was strategic. Oil supply, trade routes, long-term plans. China avoided direct conflict, but it gave Iran economic lifelines. This changed the equation. Iran was no longer isolated in the same way. The world was becoming more divided, not into clear camps, but into overlapping interests. Some countries stood firmly with the United States. Others leaned toward Iran. Many tried to stay neutral. Europe often tried diplomacy, talks, agreements, delays. But its influence was limited. Trust between Washington and Tehran remained low. Every negotiation carried the weight of past failures. By the time tensions rose again in the mid-2022s, the ground was already unstable. Small events carried big risks. A drone strike, a naval incident, a political statement. Any one of these could spiral, and everyone knew it. Yet no one stepped back fully, because stepping back could look like weakness. In this long conflict, image mattered as much as power. Strength was measured not only by weapons, but by resolve. The United States wanted to show it still led the global order. Iran wanted to show it could not be controlled. Both believed giving in would invite more pressure. So the standoff continued. Quiet at times, explosive at others. Built on history, driven by fear, and shaped by a changing world. This was no longer just a dispute between two nations. It had become a test of influence, endurance, and identity in a global system under strain. As the world moved closer to the present day, the tension stopped feeling distant. It felt closer, more personal, more fragile. By 2026, the conflict was no longer only about nuclear programs or sanctions. It was about control, about influence, about who sets the rules in a changing world. The Middle East stood at the center of this pressure. U.S. military bases were spread across the region. Iran's allied groups were active across borders. Both sides were close. Too close. One incident could change everything. Missiles did not always need to fly far. Sometimes they only needed to fly once. Energy markets reacted to every headline. Oil prices jumped. Shipping insurance costs rose. Global inflation felt the shock. This was not a regional issue anymore. It touched homes far away. In many countries, people paid higher prices because of tensions they could not see. Inside Iran, the leadership believed survival depended on strength. Backing down was not an option. History had taught them that compromise often led to more demands. The memory of past interference stayed alive. It shaped every decision. For many Iranians, the conflict was not about war. It was about dignity. In the United States, the situation looked different. America still had unmatched military power. But power came with limits. Every action was watched. Every move analyzed. A direct war would be costly. In money, in lives, in global stability. So pressure continued through other means. Economic tools, diplomacy, alliances. Washington relied heavily on partners. Israel remained firm and aggressive in its stance. Saudi Arabia and Gulf states focused on security. European allies urged restraint. Each ally had its own fears, its own red lines. Iran, on the other hand, leaned on patience. Time became a weapon. While sanctions hurt, they also forced adaptation. Local industries grew. New trade routes formed. Not enough to thrive, but enough to endure. China and Russia played quiet but important roles. They did not want war, but they also did not want American dominance unchecked. Their support was careful, calculated. This made the balance even more complex. No clear sides, no simple outcomes. As technology advanced, so did the risks. Drones became cheaper and smarter. Cyber attacks more precise. Information warfare more powerful. Truth itself became harder to find. Rumors spread faster than facts. Fear moved quicker than reason. This made calm decisions harder. Leaders had to act under pressure, often with incomplete information. This is how wars begin. Not with grand speeches, but with misunderstandings. With moments that spiral out of control. Yet even now, full war has not started. That itself is important. It shows fear still exists on both sides. Fear of consequences. Fear of loss. It shows that restraint, even when fragile, still matters. The question is not only whether war will happen. The real question is how long balance can hold. Because history shows that long tensions rarely stay frozen forever. They either fade away or they break. And in a world already under economic stress, political division, and social pressure, the cost of breaking would be high. For America, for Iran, and for everyone watching from the outside. This conflict is not just about two flags facing each other. It is about the future of power, trust, and stability in a world that feels increasingly uncertain. And as time moves forward, the silence between confrontations may be the most dangerous sound of all.